This video is on how to factor using square roots, or what we call difference of squares. Before we actually start on the factoring, you first have to note that there are three characteristics that must exist in order for you to be able to factor. First thing is you have to have a binomial. Binomial is simply a two-term expression, so your expression is only going to have two terms. You must have a minus sign in the middle, and both terms must be perfect squares. So a perfect example would be x squared minus 9. The first characteristic is that it has to be a binomial. So here are two terms in this expression. The second characteristic is it has to have a minus sign in the middle. And then the third characteristic is you have to be able to take the square root of x squared, and you have to be able to take the square root of 9. Well, that does happen for both of these terms, so let's go ahead and proceed with the factoring. You're going to set up two binomials as such. You're going to have a plus sign in the middle of the first one, and you're going to have a minus sign in the middle of the second one. You're going to take the square root of x squared, which equals x, because x times x equals x squared, and you're going to take the square root of 9, which is 3, because 3 times 3 equals 9. Now the reason that we have a plus and a minus is because once you take the positive times the negative, that's what's going to allow you to have the minus 9 or the negative 9 in the middle. Alright, our second one is 4x squared minus 25. Again, going through the characteristics, this is a binomial. There are two terms. It has a minus sign in the middle, and both of these terms are perfect squares, meaning you can take the square root of each. I'm going to take the square root of 4x squared. The square root of 4 is 2. The square root of x squared is x. Therefore, the square root of 4x squared is 2x. The square root of 25 is 5. Again, a plus sign and a minus sign, because positive times a negative will allow you to get that negative 25. And then finally, our third example is a little bit different here. If you look at this, you have a binomial, but the problem is you don't have a minus sign, and neither of these numbers are perfect squares. So the first thing you should do is ask yourself, is there a GCF that you can factor out? And in this case, I can factor out a 2 from both of the terms. But remember, I want to have a minus sign here in the middle. So if I divide by a negative 2, then that's going to allow me to have a positive number in front, and that's going to switch this to a negative number. So if I divide by negative 2, that gives me positive x squared. If I divide negative 2 into 98, that gives me negative 49. Now I have a binomial with a minus sign, and both of these are perfect squares. So I'm going to take the square root of x squared to get x and x, the square root of 49 to get my 7 and 7, and then I'm going to have my positive and my negative, so my plus and minus sign. Now, because I did factor out a negative 2 at the very beginning, it is important to pull that down with the final answer because it is a part of the original problem. If you have any further questions, please contact me.